Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. This is our first screencast for week 11, and it's a short one. It's called Knowledge Management. But before we get into that, first off, I just wanted to again highlight that last week was case reports, or looking at how to write a case report. And case reports are one way that epidemiologic information can be shared. However, more than anything, what I wanted you to get out of that if you listen to it, because again, there wasn't a homework assignment. It was more, last week was more of like, okay, let's kind of get collected. Let's kind of get caught back up. It's a busy term. People are trying to get caught up on things. And so it was just kind of something extra. But it's important because as you're early in your academic careers, it is a way for you to uh, contribute to scholarship in your profession. And for those of you who are working in a university setting already, or if you have goals of working in a university setting in the future, doing scholarly activities is highly valued and helps you with your promotion. So, case reports can be a great way for you to do some early work in that area and start to kind of build your curriculum vitae. I am in the process of grading the week 9 assignments. So I've graded the posters and those should be back to you. Those were looking pretty good. And I'm working on grading the presentations. Now, poster feedback in general, they looked good. One big thing, and I try to get this across earlier in the term, and I think students have kind of an unease or an apprehension in that they want to make sure that they get all the information across. And so for some of you, I would note that there were too many words, that you maybe wrote too much. Because again, the art of doing a professional poster, something you do for a conference, is can you draw in people to your poster? It's not just for them to read things, but it's also to engage them and to have a conversation. And if you just have a ton of words, people are going to pass by that. And so if you wrote a lot, I wanted to share with you or let you know that, yeah, that's probably too much. I get where you're coming from. You probably were like, oh, I got to make sure I tell him everything. That's what the presentation is for. That's what the written assignment is for. This was more for working on again, like the art of creating a poster. We want to have figures. We want to have charts. We want to try to display information in a way that's different than just writing paragraphs. I didn't take off any points. So if you had any points deducted from your out of 10 score, it was not for that. What I would deduct points for were things like if you didn't have figures, images, things like that, or if there were grammar, punctuation, spelling errors. Okay, let's talk about knowledge management and looking at the collection of data. So you want to be prepared. So think about what you will be doing and try to envision the easiest way to do it. And part of that is the collection of the data. How are you going to get your information? And how are you going to store it? Now, in the past, with some of my epidemiologic studies, I've collected preseason measures of strength, fitness, agility, things like that. And I had low tech versions of doing things. Low tech can work, pen and paper. It's a fine way of doing things. Here's an example of something that I did. Again, maybe not the best way, probably not the best way. What I would recommend is if you did something low tech, you should try to get it put into an Excel file or SPSS or Intellexis as soon as possible. So get it into a computer file. Make sure you've saved that information, make sure you've backed it up, and I'd also save the hard copy too, just in case. Consider high-tech options. Maybe some of you know how to program. This here was created by a entry-level DPT student working with faculty at my university. She had coding experience. And so this was or is a health app where if we did a screening clinic for people, we were able to collect their information, put it right into the app, and then that could be stored and found later and actually stored and put into a spreadsheet form for us. Now, high-tech options can be great if you know how to code. There may be other high-tech options that are out there that you could use. There may be app-specific things for your discipline. Something to consider. And again, as soon as possible, get things into an Excel file or SPSS file. And here, this just kind of illustrates the depth of data for some of my studies. Again, just looking at one test, the Y balance, and how each side of the body has 3 different reaching directions. And so I'd have somebody doing 3 reaches in each direction. So we can get pretty overwhelming. And maybe overwhelming is not the right word. It can get pretty involved over time. How are you going to track exposures? So if you were doing something and you were interested in looking at incidence, and so you're wanting to take a look at incidence density, you're going to be looking at the number of injuries, the number of people with disease per some unit of time. And in my case, that was athletic exposures. And so here's a way that I would do it again with an Excel file. I would just note the date and then whether or not a practice or a game occurred. And if you're working with others, make sure you take time to educate them as to your procedures. So if I had an athletic trainer collecting injury information for me, I would have that information supplied with, or I'd have that athletic trainer supplied with forms to keep track of who was injured, their body part, and the time that they had missed from sport. And then, of course, if we're communicating via email, have codes for communication. So I might have a women's basketball team. There would be women's basketball 1, WBB1, WBB2, WBB3, and each of us has a code list. So I know WBB1 could be Ashley Smith. And so instead of saying Ashley Smith tore her right hamstring muscle, what I would know is WBB1 was injured right hamstring strain. And in that way, there wouldn't be any concerns. I know email should be very safe, but there wouldn't be any concerns. And that's going to be something that your IRB will be interested in, is if you are communicating with others, how do you protect the identity of individuals? So here's coding again. Make sure you keep codes in a safe place so you know who you are working with. And then as you enter data into SPSS or whatever program you use for statistical software, make sure that your cutting and pasting is done correctly, that you're putting in from the Excel file one column and putting it into the corresponding correct column. That only makes sense. You should also run descriptive stats to cross-check. So for example, if you were to get a mean score in a column of 25, when the range should be 1.5 to 2.5, because you know what the scores are, right? You would know that on a particular test, they should only be in a certain range. For example, if I was looking at the standing long jump, probably the female athletes, they might be in the range of 40 to 50 inches, something like that. Well, if I got a mean score of 450 or a mean score of 4.5, then I would know that I had some sort of data entry error. So it's important to run that to double check that. And then my advice, enter your data into your computer as soon as possible after collecting the data, double check it, and then back it up. So an external hard drive is a nice way to make sure you've got it safe there. I have had computers crash before, and that is not fun. All right, we have one more PowerPoint to look at here for this week, one more screencast. But next week, we're going to be doing our critique assignment. And then, of course, your final projects will be coming due soon. So, again, you're going to be wanting to work on the written aspect of the final project. And note that I'll be happy to take a look and provide edits and comments to it. No problem, no points marked off. It's kind of a look-see prior to doing your final submission.